Hello everyone and welcome back to another wonderful video. Today I thought I would take another look at Generation 5 here. I haven't done that in a while, and there's something I've been wanting to talk about it for a while as well. So let's talk about some things that technically have been retconned in My Little Pony, because there's a lot of things that changed from generation to generation. You know, we had Generation 4, certain things were established, certain rules were in place, certain things worked certain ways. And then Generation 5, these things just don't exist or apparently work some other way or something, right? They're supposed to take place in the same universe, and there has been no explanation so far as to why these things no longer exist or why they don't work this way anymore, right? Other than that magic is gone or something like that, right? So basically, that's what I mean when I say these things have been retconned or changed in some way. So starting off, we have the cutie marks. Of course, they definitely work in some other way, right? Because for one, they used to be on both sides of the pony, right? Of course, everyone knew that. And then also you would earn this cutie mark after you like found your calling, so to speak. That was kind of how it worked. It was always kind of a little bit loose about how it worked or like what that meant or anything like that. But usually it was what you were most magically talented at or magically gifted at or something like that, right? You wouldn't just randomly get a lollipop cutie mark or something like that and then have no relation to lollipops whatsoever and have no idea what a lollipop even is or anything like that. And this one, I guess for some reason people are just born with it, or the characters are just born with their cutie mark or something. But of course they're always born with it on one side, I guess, because it's never explained or established how anyone gets their cutie marks. It just seems that everyone just kind of has them for some reason. And it's also it's very weird to me because it's like, what do each cutie mark, like what does every cutie mark mean in this show? Because a lot of them, especially the kids, they just seem to be very random things that never seem to be connected to that specific thing. Think about the main three characters that are always fangirling over Pip, for example. They have cutie marks. They don't ever seem to do anything related to those cutie marks though. So it's a weird thing. Again, I guess they're just born with it or something, because magic didn't exist for a super long time and people were still getting it, or ponies were still getting their cutie marks and things like that, and nothing really changed there. But I guess they're just born with it now or something. Or maybe it's Maybelline, I don't know. But number 2 is wendigos. Wendigos used to be a thing. Like, that's something that seemed impossible to get rid of or change or whatever else. It seemed to be a fact of nature, right? The story of the wendigos basically goes that the 3 tribes were against each other, they hated each other, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, these wendigos that exist in the sky or something like that create an everlasting winter until they can be friends and stuff like that again. It's a weird thing if you think about it, but I guess that's fine or whatever. It's weird that nature revolves around these pony tribes, but whatever, we're not going to get into that. The fact that the wendigos weren't there during that huge time period where magic didn't exist or whatever, and the pony tribes were basically very much against each other's, especially in the movie when Sprout was able to rally all of the Earth ponies together to go against the other 2 tribes. Definitely, at least around that time, you would think that wendigos might start appearing or something like that, but we don't get it. And like, I guess we won't get it in the series because the ponies are united now after the movie or whatever, but it's weird because you would think they would have been there, but for some reason they're not. And there is literally no explanation as far as I've been able to find. Maybe there's something in the comics and I haven't read far enough in the comics to see an explanation on what happened to wendigos. But at the same time, the comics have always been this sort of loose canon, if that makes sense. Like, it's only loosely canon to the show and vice versa, right? Because especially in Generation 4, comics contradicted the show and then the show would contradict the comics, and that would just go back and forth, back and forth. So it was basically impossible to say what was canon in there, so you would always just take the show's word for it for what was canon, and just ignore the comics and just say the comics is some other universe or something, right? That's kind of the only way to ever really explain that. It seems the same thing is the case here in Generation 5, because I mean, in the comics, Discord is back. I think they opened up Canterlot again or something like that. None of that has happened, and none of that seems to have happened off screen or anything like that in Generation 5 in the actual show itself. Maybe that will happen in Season 2 or Chapter 2, whenever the fuck that comes out. It seems like it's never coming out because I haven't heard anything about it in a while. But anyway, back to the wendigos. Why aren't they there? Clearly something has happened and the mechanics to them are different, or they're just straight up retconned and they just don't exist in Generation 5 for some reason, even though they should. So thirdly, this one's a little bit more of like a loose thing here, but have you noticed that all the animals have like horns or wings and stuff like that? They didn't have that in Generation 4, so my question here is like, what happened? Why do they have horns and wings and stuff like that? What happened? What happened between Generation 4 and Generation 5 that gave these animals these wings and horns and stuff like that? Likewise, have you noticed that there isn't any like crazy creatures like timberwolves or bugbears or any of these other things like parasprites or whatever those things were called? They just don't exist anymore for some reason, or at least seemingly they don't exist, because anytime they're talking about creatures, they're talking about actual animals, except it's like a rat or a mouse that has wings for some reason, or a raccoon that has a horn for some reason. Why do they have these things, and what happened to the other creatures? This is another thing that has, I guess, technically been retconned or changed between Generation 4 and Generation 5, because it's supposed to take place in the same universe, live up to the same lore and everything like that, just like 1,000 years or whatever in the future. What happened to those creatures? What happened to those things? Did the loss of all magic in the world kill these creatures? That's kind of sad, but then why did the creatures also get horns and wings somehow? Especially since they don't really use them. I guess they technically use them, but they don't use the horn, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen them use their horn, but still, why do they suddenly have horns and wings and stuff like that? Definitely a weird change. Number 4, we have Earth Pony magic. Now, of course, you could argue that in Generation 4, we never did have Earth Pony magic, and then Generation 5 is the first generation to introduce any kind of Earth Pony magic, but that's kind of not true, because we've seen Earth Pony magic in Generation 4 with Applejack being insanely strong, like impossibly magically strong, and that was kind of their whole gimmick of that they were super strong. That was their power. That was their magic. That was the Earth Pony magic that they had. I kind of expected something like that happening in Generation 5 when they kind of teased that the Earth Pony was going to get magic, that it was going to be a return to that like super strength and maybe a little bit of speed or something like that too, because that was always what the Earth Ponies had, was their strength and their speed. I mean, you got Pinkie Pie, who's literally crushing boulders with her bare fists or her bare hooves or whatever, and then you got Applejack, who has done similar things as well as lift insanely large boulders in later seasons and stuff like that. Generation 5, the magic is entirely different, which I guess they kind of explain, but in a way it is retconned because they don't have this insane super strength anymore. At least it doesn't seem like it. We haven't seen that yet. So yeah, Earth Pony magic is another thing that's kind of changed, kind of retconned in a way. Now, the last thing we have here is number 5, which it has to do with Celestia and Luna, obviously. Who's raising and setting the moon now? Because in Generation 4, it was heavily established and made clear that Luna raises the moon and Celestia lowers the sun, and vice versa. They raise and lower the sun, and the other person lowers and raises the moon, right? Whenever Luna raises the moon, Celestia lowers the sun. Whenever Luna lowers the moon, Celestia raises the sun. That was the whole thing, right? And that was pretty established as like nothing can stop this. Like this is just, it has to be them that does it. Because whenever the two sisters got killed or temporarily or like lost or whatever, and they couldn't do it, whenever they weren't able to raise the sun or whatever like that, people realized, hey, wait a minute, what happened to Celestia and Luna? Because the sun isn't out yet, and it's supposed to be like 8 in the morning by now, or 9 in the morning, or whatever like that by now, and they're just, it's not raised. So what happened? What changed between there and then that now they don't need someone to raise and lower the sun, unless there's someone behind the scenes doing that we don't know about? Maybe Opaline is doing that for some reason or something, or maybe Twilight did something special to make it automated so that she wouldn't have to do it and Celestia and Luna wouldn't have to do it. Maybe it just reverted back to the system of how it was before Celestia and Luna, because they never really specified how it worked before they existed, because they're thousands of years old, but before them, was it just like eternal night or eternal day, or was it neither? Was it like a weird midday eternally or something like that? What's going on? I don't understand. So you have that weird thing there. Who's raising and lowering the sun, and who's raising and lowering the moon? What happened here? That's another thing that changes. It just happens naturally now. Does that mean that Celestia and Luna were never raising or lowering the moon, and then those times where they were gone, they were actually keeping the moon and sun in place to warn people that they were gone? I don't know. Surely it went back to some kind of automated system or something like that, right? But it was kind of it seems like that shouldn't be the case, right? Because that's not how it used to be. But there you go. There's our 5 things or whatever that has completely changed from Generation 4 to Generation 5. Some things that they retconned and stuff like that. I'm curious if we ever will see the wendigos again, or if we'll see any of those other magical creatures like the bugbear, the parasprites, or any of those other things. Even a manticore or something like that. We haven't even got like mention of those, I don't think. So there's definitely a lot of creatures and things like that that are just gone that I would love to see. And again, I guess I'm fine with the earth pony magic, but the cutie marks, I really need an explanation on this, because I was really hoping for an explanation, because we had all these teasers and all these things like that where we got cutie marks on one side. We got to see that for all this hype leading up to the movie, and I was expecting some kind of explanation, a throwaway line that said, oh, ponies are just born with their cutie marks now, or something like that. I would have been fine with that, but now I'm not fine with it, because now if they say that, it's kind of dumb and it's kind of lame, and I don't like it anymore, because now they waited too long to do it and explain it, and it's just bad now. But yeah, I mean, cutie marks definitely I want an explanation on, and that's the one that bothers me the most, because how the fuck does it work? What's going on? I don't understand. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of these 5 things that have been retconned or changed very drastically. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all those wonderful things like that. Because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself. And I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.